Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hey, what's up? Haven't talked to you in a while.
I know it's been a minute. We just got done recording the Watchmen episode, which I kind of did this on purpose because Watchmen was a little bit heavy.
Oh, yeah.
For us, heavy for us. And this show's a little bit lighter. I feel like, so when we first came up with this idea for February, you came up with this, one of us came up with this idea.
I think it was me.
Yeah, I think it was you. And when we said that, we were like, okay, this is when we were still doing like Jeff's favorite shows, Anna's favorite shows. Now we just kind of watch whatever now.
Yeah, based on the theme.
The theme of the month, which I'm finding a lot easier to do now.
Well, and it's really funny because my sister noticed that with our new trailer, and she actually asked me about it, and I said, we've been just kind of like...
Yeah, I haven't talked about that at all. We're
developing and we're trying new things, and so I told her the story about how we made friends with the Delicious Recap, in case they might be listening, and we wanted to swap trailers and we didn't have one.
Right.
And then we created one and then you just liked it as our opening.
Yeah. And I originally was going to, we haven't even talked about that. So we're going to be in, when this comes out, we'll obviously be in our second month of the year. And I started out with the first episode in January with our ad. I have it labeled as an ad, but our trailer. And I originally wanted to do like a new intro. I kind of wanted to drop the themes within the themes, like the never haven't seen it, top show. We were eventually going to run out of those. And especially now with streaming, there's no way to know what a top show is anymore. Unless it's on
if you hear a little ticking in the back, it is Max. We're dog sitting for our friend Alicia.
Yeah.
And he is looking at us and walking around the house. So you might hear him ticking in the back.
Yeah, he's
walking around.
Very cute with his little fluffy butt.
Oh my God, he's so dang cute. All right.
So when you came up with this, we got sidetracked like we always do. When you came to me with this idea for February, and we were talking about short-lived shows, this is when we were still doing like Jeff's favorite shows, Anna's favorite shows, stuff like that. And so I'm like, well, for one of my favorite shows, I think at first I wanted to do Freaks and Geeks, but then we were like, we have to do My So-Called Life. Like, there's no option. We have to do My So-Called Life.
It's like the famous.
It's like we said in our episode. It is It's almost more famous because it was canceled.
Yes, exactly.
And so I was like, okay, so I need to think of another show, and I thought of another one that kind of is parallel to My So-Called Life. It's an angsty teen drama, but it's very different. We're going to be doing that later in the month. But for this one, this was kind of the first show that I thought of because there are just so many shows that like didn't last that long that like I could have picked. But this one, I feel like I have more of a story for it. I have more to talk about with it. And honestly, like, this is one of those things where, like, when people say guilty pleasure, is there, like, ever, like, or guilty pleasure movie or guilty pleasure TV show, is there anything that, like, will immediately pop in your brain, like, for you personally?
Yes.
So, I mean, like, so when people say guilty pleasure, this is what immediately pops in my head for me.
Wow, really?
Yes. So we'll get into all of that. So the show we were doing is called Rags to Riches. I have to tell my sister and my mom that we're doing this episode. I don't know if they remember watching this with me, but I'll tell the whole story about how I came to be with this show that I didn't know was a show until a few years ago, because the pilot is a 90-minute film. it was sold to me as a made-for-TV movie.
Oh, okay.
And when, I'll talk about all that. So for right now, we're doing Rags to Riches. It's a show from the late 80s, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of random actors are in this that are, especially in the pilot, that like kind of are still relevant and still doing stuff today. So yeah, we're going to go ahead, and Anna's going to give us some episode and series information. There's a little bit more to this one, but you'll see why.
All right. Rags to Riches, pilot. Rags to Riches was an American musical comedy drama that aired on NBC from March 9th, 1987 to January 15th, 1988 for 2 seasons with a total of 20 episodes. The series was created by Bernie Kukoff, best known for creating Different Strokes. The pilot was also written by Kukoff and directed by Bruce Seth Green. I don't know if any relation to Seth Green.
I wondered that. He's not, but...
While we don't have a solid answer as to what the inspiration for Rags to Riches came from, but being that the overall plot is very similar to Different Strokes, the simple idea of a Rags to Riches story seemed like it was appealing to Kukoff. I mean, I'm going to say it actually seemed very Annie.
That's kind of what I mean, like you're gonna see in a second, kind of what they sold it as.
Yeah, so set in the early 60s, the series is about a millionaire frozen food tycoon Nick Foley and his decision to adopt 6 female orphans as a publicity stunt to appear more like a family man.
I mean, obviously
to get more business.
Obviously, that aspect is 100% Annie.
Well, yeah, because in Annie, he just did it for like Christmas. Like, he adopted a boy, or sort of adopted a boy each Christmas to give gifts to, but never like fully adopted them. Right. Each episode features hit songs of the era sung by the girls that are integrated into the plot. Lyrics were often tweaked or changed to fit the narrative. The cast for the pilot includes Joseph Bologna as the tough but tender Nick Foley.
R.I.P.
Tisha Campbell as the ambitious Marva.
That's insane.
I know. Blanca DeGar as the cheeky Patty. Kimiko Gelman as the maternal Rose. Heather McAdam as the rebellious Nina.
Another random.
Bridget Michelle as the daydreamer Diane. Heidi Ziegler as the precocious Mickey. Douglas Seal as Nick's friendly butler, John Clapper. Clapper also serves as the narrator. Leslie Beavis as Nick's amorous girlfriend, Carlotta. Bill Maher as Nick's business partner, Freddie. Billy Warlock as Nina's greaser boyfriend, Tommy. And Mary Gillis as Miss Provo, or Miss P, the mean-spirited orphanage caretaker. The songs in the pilot include Heatwave, Chain Gang, Yakety Yak, Chantilly Lace, Dream Lover, One Fine Day, Please Mr. Postman, and Jailhouse Rock. Similar to the Little House on the Prairie, the pilot for Rags to Riches was aired as a full feature-length TV movie that set up the setting, plot, and characters for a continuation, but was given enough of a conclusion to be a standalone movie if the show wasn't picked up. The pilot basically shows how Nick came to be the adoptive father of the orphans, and the rest of the series focuses on their everyday lives. When the series was picked up by NBC, they felt like there were too many characters, maybe taking cues from Facts of Life, and decided to cut Heather McAdam's character, Nina. In episode 2, the characters mentioned that Nina was reunited with her birth mom. Tommy, Carlotta, Freddie, and Miss Provo also never reappeared after the pilot.
Yeah.
The TV movie was a success, and the first season had solid ratings and was well reviewed for being the only show of its kind on TV. However, when the second season was moved to another time slot, the ratings dropped and was eventually canceled. Thanks to DVDs and streaming platforms, Rags to Riches has remained a part of the niche corner of pop culture for those who grew up in the video store era and remember the pilot movie always coming on TV. You can currently watch the pilot and all other episodes on YouTube. YouTube.
Okay.
All right. So tell me your history with the show and why it remains so strong in your memory after all these years.
It's insane how and I'm sure you have these too. I'm sure I'm 100% sure everybody on planet Earth has these things, that these random movies or songs or TV shows or whatever that, like, for some reason, no explanation why, it just sticks in your memory. Maybe it was the singing, maybe it was the actors, I don't know. But so originally my sister and I randomly watched like part of this movie on TV. And it was sold, like I said, it was sold to us as like a made-for-TV movie. The show had long since been canceled.
Oh, okay. By the time you saw it.
Yeah, so this was probably like early, this is when we still lived in Central, so this was like early 90s.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it probably came on like network TV, like a Saturday afternoon type movie thing.
Okay.
Like they used to always do on like ABC and stuff like that. Especially back earlier then when there was less to watch on TV.
Definitely.
Less channels, so you kind of just watched, like we always say, we watched what was on TV because those are the only options we had.
Yeah.
And we liked it. We liked, of course, we were a musical loving family. I've talked about that before. We were a musical loving family, so of course my sister and I were really into it. But we didn't really know what was going on in the movie. We kind of just watched. We kind of came into the middle of it. There wasn't DVR to rewind back then, or there wasn't, the obvious things that we have now. And we kind of were just like, okay, we don't know what's going on. So I think like we just stopped watching it. But we knew it was called Rags to Riches because we had the TV guide. We had the.
So were you watching the show or
we're watching
movie?
the movie?
Oh, okay.
That's what I said. Like that's why I was saying. Like it was sold to us like as a TV movie. It was just playing, and it just said all it said in the TV guide was Rags to Riches. It didn't say TV series or anything like that.
Okay, got it.
It probably had like the cast members' names, and that was it. And so we knew that, and so like I think very soon after we went to Video Co-op. That was the name of our video store. And the family section was its own separated area, and the entrance was the Cheshire Cat's mouth. Like it was this big painting. I mean, like old school video stores were the best.
Oh yeah, they were
like
great.
the mom and pop ones that weren't.
Oh, they were trying to get the kids in.
Oh yeah. And we were kind of looking around, and Sarah was like, Jeff, look. And I'm like, look, and it was Rags to Riches. It was the VHS. And so we were like, oh, we can watch the whole movie now. And so we went home, we watched it, and we, at least from my memory, we were obsessed with it. Like, we thought it was, like, the best. There was, like, singing, and it was funny, and it was all about kids. So, of course, like, that struck our interest, any other thing, especially in the 90s. There was a lot of, like, kid-centric stuff. And we kind of just became obsessed with it, and then years later, we didn't watch it anymore. We kind of got a little older. We moved away from Central. Video Co-op is now the Greenville Springs alternate school for kids that get suspended. I don't know if it's still that, but that's the last time I saw that it was the alternate school or whatever it's called.
Gotcha.
And I mean, years later, I was at my dad's house. So this was like years later. My parents divorced. My dad remarried. I was at my dad's house for the weekend, and we went to that Blockbuster where the appliance store is now by Albertsons.
Oh, okay.
That used to be a Blockbuster.
Oh, okay.
And that was Blockbuster from the time I moved here until whenever Blockbuster started closing down. And I'm walking around, and this was probably an era where I had probably watched all the horror movies I could possibly find at Blockbuster. I'd watched all the new movies I could possibly be interested. I went through that every now and then. Like even back in the good old days of video stores, I would run out of stuff to watch. And I would just kind of my dad would get so annoyed. I would just kind of like how people shop for clothes or shoes. I shopped for movies. I mean, I think, that's what you do when you can't think of something. So I'm walking around, and I'm in I guess the kids or family or maybe even the comedy section, and I see Rags to Riches. And I'm just like, oh my God, I remember that. I was like, I'm 12 or 13. So, and I don't think Tyler was with me. So I was like, I think I could rent this and not be embarrassed. So I'm just like, because, this was before you could let your geek flag fly. You had to hide all of your dorkiness and stuff. And you couldn't, it's a few years later, I would have been like, I don't care. But so I watched it again when I was about 12 or 13. And that was when, I didn't know what it was called yet, but that was when I kind of realized what a guilty pleasure was. Because I was just like, this is so cheesy.
Oh, yeah.
This is so corny.
But I love it. And it is so freaking cute. And it is so charming. And I'm going to go ahead and say, the acting was really good. I mean, yes, I will say
I see why Heather McAdam got cut. She was probably like the hammiest with her dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
No offense to Heather McAdam, but like, yeah, she was definitely like the hammiest, but it's just one of those movies that like I would say like feel good. It's a feel good movie. So more years past, I think I taped it onto a VHS, and I had it, and I never labeled it because I didn't want anyone to know that I'd done that, because I was like embarrassed that I was like still in love with this movie. Still, I only know it as a movie. I don't know it as a TV show. IMDb did not exist at this point in time. Internet barely existed at this time. It was dial-up AOL at this point. Strictly used for IM, at least for me. It was used as instant messenger only, chat rooms and stuff. You know, every now and then I'd be like, what's this blank tape? I'll put it in Instagram stories. I'm like, oh, okay, let me watch this. So it's like throughout my like youth, I would watch it maybe like once a year or something like that. And once again, years and years pass. I become an adult, and I kind of, you know, move forward with my life, and I stopped thinking about it. And then for some reason, I don't know what struck in my brain one day that made me think of it. I thought about it before, but I don't know what, like, I don't remember exactly what it was. I'm like, oh, let me look this up it was the first time I'd ever looked it up on IMDb. Like, I had never even thought about it. And, you know, I have IMDb as an app. Like, I'm on that thing all the time. So I went and looked it up, and I see the names. I recognize the actors, and so I know who the actors were, and I see it as a TV show, and I'm like, kind of like, you know, look at it. I kind of look further into it. This whole time, Rags to Riches has been a TV show. I found this out like 5 years ago or something.
Oh, wow.
Maybe like 10 years ago. I found this out. This was when, yes, it had to have been about 10 years ago, because it was when like apps on phones were really starting. That was when I started being on my phone a lot. And I was like, does IMDb have an app? IMDb does have an app. It was like kind of one of those things. And the thing is that, so like,
you had never watched the show.
I never watched the show. I'd only watched the pilot. Still to this day, I have only watched the pilot.
Oh, okay.
So when the thing was that I remember, you know, and then like I saw this TV show, I'm like, oh, okay. And then whenever, yes, this is the right era, because this was right after when Mary Jo died, and I was like looking for stuff to watch, getting my mind off of things, and trying to, like, you know, take my mind off of things. I don't remember how it popped in my brain, but I went and looked it up on my phone again, and I was like, okay, and like I typed it into YouTube, because at this point in time, it was very easy to find old TV episodes on YouTube.
Yeah.
This was back before they really cared about copyrights. This was back before they really were being strict about checking them and everything. And so, I mean, you could go and find entire series of shows on YouTube.
I know, yeah.
You still kind of can, but it's very specific types of shows. And so I type in Rags to Riches with the complete intent of watching the show, but I still only watched the pilot movie. I went and I watched it again, so this would have been like 2014 or something like that. So yeah, it was more than 10 years ago. And yeah, so I still only watched the pilot, and I'm like, you know what? I'm only going to watch the pilot. I was just like, I don't know if I'm ever going to want to watch the show, because I know it's not going to be the same thing. And I know it's going to be a condensed version, but it's not going to be the story of how they came to be. It's just going to be like a story about 5 girls living with a rich guy. I don't know. Like, it was just kind of, I didn't want to ruin what this has been in my memory that I've cherished so much for since I was 8 years old or something like that. So I don't want it to be tarnished. So I'm almost like afraid to watch it. Not actually afraid, but I mean, like, I'm kind of just like,
right, because it has a very core memory for you.
Yes, and it is. I mean, I'm not going to say this is kind of one of those episodes. This is kind of one of those shows. We do shows every now and then where I'm like, I'm not technically encouraging people to watch this. I wanted to take everyone down memory lane with me, and I kind of wanted to talk about a show that means a lot to me, but it's not the show that means a lot to me. It's the pilot that I thought was a movie for 25 years. And it was just like, and then I've realized about 20 years. And then I realized 20 years later that it's a TV show, but it'll always be a movie to me. So it's
Oh yeah.
And I showed, as we were watching it, same as exactly like Little House on the Prairie, as you were showing me, I was showing you. I'm like, see, this very easily could have just been a movie, the way it ended and the way it like kind of, was in all the 3 different acts and it was all split up the way it was. Like, it did not feel like a pilot, and that's how the Little House on the Prairie movie felt. It didn't feel like a pilot. That was why we had to watch the actual first episode of Little House on the Prairie, and that actually felt like a pilot.
Right.
But it didn't feel the same way with Rags to Riches. And also, like I said, I don't want to watch the TV show.
Got you.
Maybe one day I'll put on an episode, but like probably not.
Yeah, after we talk about the pilot, I'm going to tell you I wasn't really interested in.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I felt it very Annie-esque, and
Yeah.
Annie has a very special place in my
Right.
heart. So, yeah, I was like, this seemed like a ripoff.
Oh,
of
100%,
Annie.
yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, there are lots of non-original content and shows that rip off of other things or inspired by
Yeah.
other things, but Annie, it's kind of funny, is a very core memory to me, and I mean the musical, because it was the very first musical I ever saw.
Right.
With my grandmother at the Sanger, and I don't think my grandmother knew what the hell was going on because it was in English and she was from Honduras. But, that to me was very core memory.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you say that, because movies like the 80s, 90s Annie and stuff,
Yeah.
like, and then even the current ones with Jamie Foxx or
Yeah.
whoever it was, I'm always like,
Yeah.
because I have that core memory of the musical is mine.
Yeah.
And so I definitely understand how you don't want to ruin that.
And I was not, and when we sat down to watch this, I wasn't like, babe, you're going to love this. I was like, we have introduced a lot of random shows to each other as we've done this podcast, and some of them change. Like, I think there have been shows that you've shown me where I'm like, this is really cheesy, but that's the charm. And it's, the shows I've shown you, you're like, this is cheesy. I'm like, I know. I'm just like,
going to definitely admit that when you picked this and when we watched it, I didn't know this story that you just told.
oh yeah.
And so, like, you saved that for the pod, and I'm sitting here listening and now going, oh, that's why he wanted to watch this one.
Yeah.
I had initially thought this was just a random short series you found and picked. I had no idea that this was part of, like, your and Sarah and your mom core memory of, like, this show.
They very well may not remember this.
They probably do.
Probably my sister, maybe not my mom. Who knows? Maybe they both do.
But because when we were watching it, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to talk good about this one. But, I love that it's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a guilty pleasure is.
And that's the only way. I mean, like, honestly, like, it's the only way I could, like, truly justify it. It's just like, it's a guilty pleasure. I'm well aware that it's cheesy. I'm well aware that it's, it is what it is, but, like, there's just a certain charm for this era of television where it's like kind of the 80s, 70s and 80s, these kind of like family shows that are very melodramatic, that are very kind of, melodramatic acting, and the storylines are very just kind of the same, and they all kind of have the same type of show and the same type of format. I just thought it was cool that this was like a jukebox musical before I knew what a jukebox musical was.
Yeah, that was really like surprising as well, because I was sitting here thinking they were gonna have like original music, and then when they just started singing yakety yak, I was like, oh, okay, it's a jukebox musical. I was like, okay, wow.
Yeah, so that's my story. Yeah, I really wanted to tell you all this before.
No, I'm glad
we watched the show, but that's exactly why. That's exactly why I saved it. I knew I couldn't just explain it to you while we were watching the movie or even before. It's like I said, I'm not going to say therapy when we're talking about this kind of stuff, but this is a really fun way to tell you stories and to tell you certain things, even if no one else listens to these episodes, I'm glad that we can go on the record and I can tell you some of these stories.
Yeah, I love it.
Because, we tend to tell maybe not the same stories when we're together, but we tend to live in the present, I would say. And there are still, it's really funny because there are still so many stories that like we've never told each other. So, all right. So we've said it before. This is a musical, jukebox musical. I believe, I want to say it was when we were doing the 90210 episode, maybe. It was when we were talking about Maxwell Caulfield because we kind of like this movie called Grease 2.
Yes.
And maybe we talked about I think we always end up talking about musicals because the Sanger shows are always kind of going on while we're watching them, while we're recording these. But we've never really talked about musicals. So I was trying to think of like, we have to talk about musicals in some way. It would be weird if we didn't for this show, especially once I get into the plot summary and talk about when they sing and stuff like that. So I was trying to think, and of course there are so many musicals out there, and I mean when I was looking at the list I was just kind of in the back of my head like looking at like the list of musicals, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not getting through this whole list. I'm going off of memory. I'm going off of like, I can't like go off of a list because my eyes will start to hurt. So
okay.
Do you want to? What are some musicals that you haven't seen live that you want to see live?
Well, a dream of mine would always be to see A Chorus Line, because that was like one of my favorite.
I have that on my list too.
Movies that I saw as a movie, but never as an actual like on stage musical. And I'll be honest, that's a guilty pleasure movie for me, and everyone hates it, but I love it.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. So I will say, I've always wanted to see Cabaret.
Okay.
Just obviously it's famous, and
Schitt's Creek. I'm just
yes, just from Schitt's Creek. I think on Broadway it's done sort of in the round, so I think that's really interesting, and maybe that would be a splurge to like be close to the stage.
Aren't there like special tickets where you can like sit and be like audience members within the musical? See, like that's cool.
Yeah, those are like I'm not saying $600 or $700
I'm not saying let's buy those tickets. I'm just saying that's cool.
But no, when we were thinking about going to New York recently, I mean last year or whenever it was recently, I had messaged my friend Colleen in New Orleans, not the one but another one.
Okay.
And she had actually done that. She had gone and sat in those seats, and she's like, "Oh, it's worth the splurge." But that's like her favorite thing to do. Like
gotcha.
she will literally like leave work on a Friday, go to New York, go to see like 2 musicals on Saturday, and then come home on Sunday.
That's actually kind of awesome.
Oh yeah, it's like crazy, and I'm like, but that's the way to do it, It
really is.
If you're just gonna go to do that.
If you, I agree with that. If you're gonna go to New York just to go see musicals, like do 2 a day. Go like on a Friday and a Saturday, or a Saturday and a Sunday, whenever they do a matinee and a date and a evening one.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think. Like we have seen a lot. So. What about you? What is something you've wanted to see on stage?
Hold on, my voice recording turned on while we were talking.
And
it just recorded our whole text onto my notes app. All right. So musicals that I want to see. So I'm excited about this one because we are actually going to see this soon. I truly cannot wait to go see The Wiz. I loved that movie growing up. Of course, I love Diana Ross, Michael Jackson. I mean, like it was such a. That's another kind of, not core memory, but that's another like memory I have of like being at my house in Central and just the random movies that would come on like like we said earlier, like a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon on network TV, or maybe on like a Friday night or something like that before TGIF existed, or when we weren't watching it. And I just remember The Wiz always coming on TV. I don't know specifically when the era was. I don't even know the last time I truly saw The Wiz. I mean, it's on Netflix right now, so I would be down to watch it at some point.
Okay.
But I'm really excited just because I just loved. I loved. I mean, we've talked about this before. I loved The Wizard of Oz growing up, and I think most kids, kind of millennial and older, grew up watching The Wizard of Oz
and all of Wicked now.
Yeah, and now, well, obviously, I'm talking about like The Wizard of Oz. Though.
I know.
But yeah, but no, Wicked is everywhere, and of course, I mean, Wicked rules. Another one that I want to see, and it's funny because I saw it on your Broadway thing just now. I want to see Aladdin on stage. I think that would be.
Yes.
I think that would be really cool. It's one of. I mean, like I think. It's kind of a basic thing to be like, it's one of my favorite Disney musicals because, duh, it's so many other people's favorites. But it would just be really cool to see that on stage. We've seen it live action, and I really enjoyed the live action movie. I don't know how everyone else felt about it, but I really liked it. Nassim Pedrad was really funny in it.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to be seeing this next season. It's the only show that we know about. It's Back to the Future, the musical. We're going to see, that's going to be coming to the Sanger next December, I think.
Okay.
Really excited about that. And this one's funny because I've been in this play and I love the movie, but I've never actually seen it live before, and it's Oliver.
Oh, okay.
I've never actually seen Oliver on stage before. I've been in Oliver. I've seen the movie a bunch of times, but I've never actually seen the play. It'd be kind of cool to like watch the play because I was in the children's chorus, so I didn't get to watch every scene and all that. I never got like the VHS footage, like taping of it. So I never really got to watch like the whole musical. So just the parts that I was in.
Oh.
And of course I know the movie and stuff, but I like most musicals, there's so much more on the stage musical than there is in the movie, more songs, more scenes, stuff like that. I also wrote a chorus line because you love it, and also I really loved that movie. It felt very. It's really interesting that like it really felt like one of those. I always love like the show within the show type stuff,
Oh, yeah.
and I always really like that. And I love the idea of these people are auditioning for. It's a musical about people auditioning for a musical, and they're not auditioning for like the lead role. They're not auditioning for anything spectacular. They're auditioning just to be in it, like just to be.
Well, and I think that was what I found interesting finding out later was that in the movie it was going to be like their first shot, and in the real musical on Broadway it was their last chance.
Yeah, and really in the musical, in the movie, it was just like that one woman,
right?
That was she was kind of like the seasoned.
Yeah. So I think I would like to see that kind of paradox aspect. Yes.
And the last one I have for ones that I want to see on stage is Into the Woods. I
yes.
love, so that's another one that I've never seen. I've never saw the movie. I never saw the musical, but I know the music, and I really like the music to it. Once again, yeah. So did you say some already?
I just said my one.
Okay.
I feel like we've seen a lot. I think maybe I would want to see some like specifically on Broadway.
Yeah.
I know we see like the touring company. I think I would just love to see just about any of like the Broadway with like the big stars in them. You know, like Funny Girl with obviously Leah Michele, or you know, anything with Idina Menzel, or you know, something like that. Like I've always also said I would want to see Six again. I think
so good.
Six, or of course Hadestown.
Of course, I would want to see Hadestown again. I would like to see So we saw Anne Juliet in this month. We're recording this in January, but oh no, it's February 1st. It's February 1st. And we saw Anne Juliet. I go see that again because I really enjoyed it, but maybe not, because maybe it was just that cast, because I thought they were amazing.
Yeah, they were really good.
But of course, another jukebox musical. It's hard not to love those because it's so recognizable. Yeah,
familiar. You feel it because you're like, I have like a connection already.
So I kind of wrote down a mini list. There's only like 3 of them of movie musicals that I want to see that I've never seen, because most of them are a little older. So there's one that I need to rewatch, because I say I need to rewatch, but I'm not 100% sure that I've ever actually seen Purple Rain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
And that is something that, like, of course I know the music, I know the album, I know all that, but I don't know if I've ever seen the movie, and I thought of this one just because Courtney from Smosh referenced this one a lot. I've never seen Xanadu.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've seen it,
Yeah.
but like, I really do not remember everything that happened.
I know
like,
I know it's kind of like So Bad It's Good kind of movie, and I adore those type of movies. And then the only other one is Across the Universe, the Beatles musical. I never saw that. It was from the 2000s. Evan Rachel Wood and Jim Sturgis was in it. Yeah, like it was supposedly really good. I just never saw it. It maybe just the era that it came out. I just never went and saw it. But yeah, are there any musicals that you think are overrated?
Yes.
You say it.
Hamilton.
I agree. I agree.
Just, like, I totally get the whole, like, it's cool, it's hip, he's rapping, he's Lin-Manuel Miranda, whatever. Don't come at me, Lin-Manuel. I love you.
Yeah, he's listening.
You never know. He might be. But I just feel like I don't get the hype. I really do not. Maybe
I remember when we went and saw it on live. We saw it at the Sanger, and I was excited just because this musical is such a big deal, and maybe it was the girl behind us that was like singing the entire time, and we're like, you know the songs, congratulations, but it's just like, I hate saying this, but like it reminds me of like, okay, so we've watched Abbott Elementary. If I'm saying that the history teacher, the new teacher with Quinta Brunson, that like he like tries to be like cool with his students, and he was a history teacher, and he's a history teacher too. It seems like it was something that like a history teacher wrote to try to make history sound cool to their students. Yeah. It just sounded very, I'm going to go ahead and say it, extremely cheesy. And I think it's on par with, not on par with Rags to Riches, but speaking of cheesy stuff, it's just kind of like, I just found it, and also like the reality that like these men were actually like awful human beings in real life, and that they're kind of being portrayed as these like relatable, likable people. It's just kind of like, don't do that. Like we don't do that. Like it's
right. And so
it's like Alexander Hamilton was like an awful human being, and it was like, yeah, there are founding fathers, whatever. It's just like we can acknowledge what they did for our country, but let's not try and make them heroes when they're not, or let's not try to make them saints or relatable or likable just to I don't know, like it just bothers me. I don't know why, because it shouldn't. Why should I care so much? But like,
well, I also feel like a lot of people will post that it was amazing, I was in the room when it happened, or all of that, because they feel like they have to. I really do, because I'm just going like, I don't know, maybe there's something I'm not getting in it. Maybe someone can tell me what I'm missing. But like, I left, I'm trying to feel like Hades Town, and it's based on mythology and all of that. And again, Hades is not great. It's like he's a bad person, but like that one was about love and just like, I just felt so emotional with that one, where with Hamilton, I was, like you said, I was like, okay, these were all a bunch of like buttheads.
These were all slave-owning aristocrats who didn't want to pay their taxes.
Yeah, exactly. But so I don't know. So that one is one. And then the other one, again, will be something.
I really hope we have the same too.
I don't know if it's going to be yours. Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, I was gonna say My Fair Lady.
Oh, okay.
Not the same era, but
I
that same kind of like everyone's favorite.
I didn't know that. Like, you told me that your mom and Sarah loved My Fair Lady. I don't know a lot of people that love My Fair Lady, but for me, Phantom of the Opera is the one that everyone's like, oh my God, Phantom of the Opera, it's amazing. And I'm like, after like the big song,
the opening,
like
the opening's
he's
awesome.
going through like, the underground and up the stage and down the stairs and across
comes down the chandelier.
Yeah. You're like, all right, like that was it. The big song is over with and whatever. So those are my two overrated musicals. Hamilton, I will say same thing.
I'm not gonna say maybe My Fair Lady isn't overrated to me. Maybe I just don't like it. Because the only reason why I don't like it is I just think it's boring.
Yes.
And people, I mean, like people love it.
Oh,
People
Alicia
absolutely
loved
love it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I mean, like maybe I just have these memories of like my mom and my sister watching it and me wanting to like, bash my head into the table.
Well, yeah, when we saw it, I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this thing is like horrendous.
I will say that there was a musical that had been hyped up to being like one of the best like modern musicals, and I didn't get it, so maybe in that sense it's overrated. But Mean Girls the musical, I didn't.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that musical got like a lot of like, oh my god, it's so good, it's so good, it's so good, and I went and saw it, and I'm just like, this is all right. It's exactly like the movie, just with singing. It's just like, I don't know. It didn't add anything. I felt it didn't add anything, because when I feel like we watched Beetlejuice, and even when we watched Clue on stage, I feel like they brought something new to it. I mean, making. I mean, the guy that played Beetlejuice was incredible. I mean, like he was insanely funny, and I know he probably brought like a lot of like ad lib and improv into it, and he kind of made it his own. I love any musical where you could just constantly drop the F-bomb. It's just something that I'm not used to growing up with like classic musicals and stuff. But yeah, this is I would say, I'd really just say Hamilton. I think Hamilton's just like my ultimate answer. I like the music of Phantom of the Opera, but the musical, like the play itself, is very bland. It's very boring. But I love I love most of the music. Maybe I don't know all of it, but
I did think of one more that I think I wish I would have been able to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember, like, I learned about it in like the 90s, is Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yeah.
I never saw, that on stage.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's touring anywhere.
Right. It was it was maybe short-lived. Yeah. You have that one song on our playlist.
Oh, I have a couple of songs from
okay.
it, but you just have the one on
Gotcha.
your playlist. So yeah.
All right, I had another question for us, but we're getting pretty far into this episode, so we can jump into the pilot summary. So this was 90 minutes. I'm going to do my absolute best to summarize this.
All right.
I think I can do it. I think I know enough about this movie to where I can kind of riff on it. I can kind of riff a little bit. So, all right, so Rag to Riches pilot summary. So the opening it shows like they're called the Delights. They're kind of like the Supremes. They're singing Heat Wave on TV, and you see like the TV. It's John Clapper. He's the butler for Nick Foley, this frozen food tycoon, millionaire. He was a guy that came from nothing. His street smarts and ambition gave him the American dream. Fancy cars, a sprawling mansion in Bel Air. He's met presidents, celebrities, athletes, you name it. He's living his best life, but his life is about to get turned upside down, and it's about to change forever. So Nick returns. So Nick Foley, this is the Daddy Warbucks of the show. He returns to his mansion to his business partner Freddie, played by Bill Maher, in the most random thing ever. And yeah, his business partner. I actually don't know what Freddie does. I just refer to him as his business partner because that's the only thing I could think of to call him. So yeah, he's waiting on him, and basically like Nick is potentially going into business with this guy named Baldwin, who's this big food distributor, and they're kind of waiting on Baldwin to give an answer. He's kind of been stalling, been kind of giving Nick the cold shoulder, but making him think that there's maybe a chance, and so they're kind of waiting on that. Nick's stressed out about it, but then his girlfriend Carlotta enters the room, and every time these two are on screen together, it's just horny.
It's crazy.
It is like, it becomes very clear that like Nick is only interested in one thing with Carlotta, and that she makes him horny because they're always like making out. It's crazy. I mean, good for them, but still. So as soon as she enters the room, he's fine. I love he has his accent, so he calls her Carlotta. She reminds him they're going to the opera later that night, and she helps him get ready. Presumably they're going upstairs to get busy. Meanwhile, across town in downtown LA at the Margaret Keating Home for Orphan Girls, Marva, Nina, and Diane begin jokingly singing Chain Gang. This is technically the first song that they sing, but it's not like an official thing. It's just kind of you can tell they're singing it live, like it's not pre-recorded. Chain Gang is a song that was originally performed by Sam Cooke. And they're singing while they're doing the dishes. Patty and Mickey join in, but they're interrupted by Rose, who reminds them that they need to finish soon or they'll be in trouble with the home's caretaker, Miss Provo, aka Miss Hannigan. Due to the city making budget cuts, orphanages are closing down all over the city, and the kids are being moved into foster homes, and those who are left over are being placed in detention centers. This really happened. This is something that really happened. It's possibly happening right now. This was one of those things where I didn't realize until I was an adult how messed up that is. I was like, didn't even think about it because like there's always stakes like this in like kids movies and stuff. The girls all live together in room 204, not room 104, which was a HBO show that we forgot about a long ass time ago. Also created by Mark Duplass, who did Togetherness, which might be a show we might be doing this month.
Maybe.
So they become like a little tight-knit family. They refuse to split up, and this causes a lot of friction between them and Miss Provo, since they always intentionally scare off any potential foster parent. This has also caused the girls to be outcasted by the other orphans who are always teasing them. So this night is no different. Diane, so basically, and also what these people do is they adopt these kids and use them as free labor. So Diane's kind of like the very feminine. She likes her makeup. She likes her nice clothes. She's very, I would say, prissy is the word that you would use. She does not want to go live on a farm with these foster parents who are essentially going to treat her like free labor. So she throws it's not going to be that long, boo.
Oh my God, it's like 7 pages.
It's 90 minutes.
Okay.
So she scares off the foster parents by she sucks her thumb, starts making like whining noises, kind of while they're explaining all of her duties on the farm, which just probably those cries were probably for real. Meanwhile, back in the kitchen, Patty gets into an argument. The only reason why I'm being specific on this is just it's so random who these two girls are in this scene. So Patty gets into an argument with Cogan, played by Winifred Freeman from Last American Virgin. So if you've ever seen Last American Virgin, it's at the very, very beginning. They're in the scene where Gary is trying to take off the girl's bra with the scissors.
Oh,
and she was in that. I just thought it was funny that it was her. And then so Cogan... so she puts Cogan, the girl from Last American Virgin, puts a greasy pan in the clean water. Patty asks if she's stupid. Cogan gets her friend Marie involved, who's played by Penelope Sudrow from Dream Warriors. So she had to have been just to have done this since 1987. And they both find it funny that Patty is the one asking if they're ignorant. Marie makes a joke implying that Patty can't read. Patty starts getting angry. Rose intervenes. And then Cogan's like, okay, I'll move it. And then she intentionally spills water on Patty, which causes a water fight between all of the girls. Classic orphanage. While Miss Provo's yelling at Diane for throwing the interview, they kind of hear the commotion going on. Miss Provo tries to break it up. She slips and falls. Room 204, our 6 orphans, they get blamed for it. And every time they try to defend themselves, Miss Provo responds with, "Don't talk back." I wonder what song they're about to sing. So she demands that they clean up the mess, and so our first official musical number begins, and it is the girls sing Yakety Yak, originally sung by the Coasters, while we see a montage of what their daily lives at the orphanage is like, aka It's a Hard Knock Life.
Yep, exactly.
It's really funny because, I knew that going in. I'm like, I'm going to make so many comparisons to Annie. It's not even funny. So this is the first time we see them changing lyrics, but not until the end when they start singing about how Miss Provo wants to split them up, and that's not going to happen because Yakety Yak, they'll fight back. And that's actually what they said at the end of the song. So back in the opera, Nick can barely stay awake. Freddie interrupts him and is like, hey, I need to talk to you. It's in German. Nick's not paying attention. And so he tells him, Freddie tells Nick, hey, Baldwin's not going to go with the deal. And Nick is just like, have you told him about everything I've done philanthropy wise? Have you, talked to him about all my accolades, all of that? And he's basically like, he knows all of that, but he doesn't want to go into business with someone. Nick kind of has a reputation of being like a seasoned bachelor. And Baldwin and all of his associates are like family men, family business. He wants to go into business with someone who has that type of image that Nick doesn't quite fit. And so Freddie and Nick decide they need to come up with kind of like an extreme, drastic measure. I wonder where this is going. So back at the orphanage, Rose reads an article about the orphanage closing down while they're waiting for Patty to throw another interview. And that's when Miss Provo kind of threatens them to send them to Juvie Hall, which is so funny to hear Juvie Hall. Who says Juvie Hall? Anyway, Rose calls the reporter who wrote the article and decides for them to write an article about how they won't split up, hoping that like a couple will see the article and adopt all 6 girls so they don't have to split up. So Freddie sees this article and is basically like, Nick, we got to do this. This is it. This is to show everyone that you're a family man. And so Nick kind of reluctantly agrees to it. So a few days later, actually, it could be the next day. I don't know how time moves in this universe. They all, Nick, Freddie, Clapper, the rest of the staff, all these reporters, they're waiting for all the girls to get there. They arrive, introduce themselves. Nick obviously seems very, kind of like how Daddy Warbucks was at the beginning of Annie, just very kind of like stiff and kind of like,
I'm doing this because I have to.
For that. And so Clapper kind of becomes their Anne Ranking's character, Grace. Kind of becomes like Clapper brings the girls inside, and that's when they sing. Technically, they sing Chantilly Lace, but Chantilly Lace is about a guy describing his dream girls. So they change it to just all the amenities that they now all have. So it's like Chantilly Lace and anything that can rhyme with that.
Yeah.
Which was actually kind of cute. Chantilly Lace was originally sung by the Big Bopper.
I have a little bit of history of that.
Oh, go for it.
My friend Lisa from high school, not the Lisa that you know.
Okay.
Her dad was at the last concert that the Big Bopper was in before the plane crash with him and Buddy Holly and Richie Valens.
That's right.
He still has his ticket from that night.
My God, that is insane.
It's crazy. All right, go on.
Well, I love that you have a Big Bopper story.
Yes.
So, even Clapper joins in on their little dance breaks, which was also, cute to watch. So Nick and the girls get off to a rocky start. All their reactions are different. The one that I find the funniest is Marva, played by Tisha Campbell, who is just constantly offering business ideas.
Oh, right.
To Nick.
Because she's like, I'm going to use this.
Yeah.
Like, I know we're only here for a little while, but I'm going to get out of it what I can.
She's kind of showing that, like, she's very business savvy. She's the one that reads the paper and tells the girls what's happening with the budget cuts in the city. So she's looking, but like all of her ideas were funny, like the frozen popcorn and then freezing your winter clothes during the summer, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
So everyone's just kind of in La La Land except for Nina, who is kind of like suspicious of Nick. Like she's kind of the only one that's asking like, why did he do this? But she's not too worried because she has Tommy, played by, was it Billy Warlock?
Billy Warlock.
Who eventually went on to go on Baywatch.
Yeah, he started in soap operas, like Days of Our Lives.
He's in also a movie called, I think it came out around this time, called Society. If you've never seen it, I warn you, watch it, but it is an insane horror movie.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So she has her boyfriend, Nina has her boyfriend, Tommy. Tommy's a nice guy, but he rides a motorcycle and he wears a black leather jacket.
He's bad then.
And he runs with the motorcycle gang called the Roadhogs, which is so funny. I'm just saying the name, the Roadhogs.
The Roadhogs.
So yeah, Marva doesn't like Nina running around with a greaser like Tommy, who seems like bad news. But Rose is just kind of like, if he makes Nina happy, then we should be happy for her. So Tommy informs Nina that the Roadhogs are migrating up to San Francisco, which was kind of a trend pre-hippie in the early mid-'60s. People were just kind of migrate, all kind of like social outcasts were kind of like migrating up to San Francisco because that's just where people were hanging out. Haight-Ashbury, Beatniks, I believe, was pre-hippie. So he wants Nina to go with him to San Francisco. She's hesitant, reminding everyone Nina's 15.
Right. Like.
And eventually the other girls start to feel neglected by Nick and all start thinking like Nina, suspicious of why he adopted them. Baldwin is impressed with Nick's adopting of the girls and wants Nick to meet one of his business associates, Mr. Schembeckler. And the whole joke is no one can get their name right, so I tried to say it correctly as I could. I even had to rewatch the scene because I couldn't remember what their actual name was because they always say it wrong. Mr. Schembeckler. Baldwin wanted them to meet because he has 4 teenage daughters and thought the two would connect over that. So Nick starts to show some interest in the girls. Patty's teacher informs that Patty's reading skills are way behind. So he tries to help Patty with that. It ends up not working out. It was really funny how you predicted all the things that she was about to say.
Oh, yeah.
Egyptians, yeah. But Patty sees that like Nick is trying, so she kind of tells the other girls like he may not be so bad. I was also giving him a hard time. So they're kind of maybe changing their minds a little bit. Like, let's go out there. Rose is like, let's go out there. Let's impress the Schembecklers, and let's show them that we belong. And so they go out, and things kind of get off to a rocky start. The Schembeckler girls are not nice. They're very
mean girls.
They are not very nice. They kind of make snide comments about them being adopted and them being orphans, and referring to themselves as legitimate, referring to them as illegitimate. And it kind of culminates with one of the girls throwing Mickey's saxophone into the pool, which not very nice. So the girls retaliate by kind of. They tie them up in a volleyball net and throw them into like the pond pool and put like algae all over them.
Yeah, it was funny.
So the Schembeckler parents are freaking out, and Nick and Carlotta, of course, freaking out. But Nick like berates the girls, doesn't even ask them their side of the story, just like Miss Provo did. They're always getting blamed, and so he kind of orders them to their rooms, and kind of you're punished and you can't leave your room. So a little later that night, Carlotta tells Nick, like, kind of suggests, like, you don't have to return them to the orphanage, and they don't have to stay here. You can send them off to a boarding school, which was another thing that rich people did with their kids. Send them off to boarding school, and they'll be out of the house, and Nick will still look good because he's providing them with a top-tier education. So that night, Rose, Marva, Diane, Patty, and Mickey sing Dream Lover, originally performed by Bobby Darin. The song is basically to the tune of Dream Lover and is changed to Dream Maker, where the girls sing about how sorry they are and for Nick to give them a second chance. And during the song, the girls are all in their rooms while Nina packs to run away with Tommy, which she's packing. It's like a thunderstorm, and she goes out there and her bag's like soaking wet. And I'm just like, wow, you're not going to get very far. Hope there's a laundromat somewhere.
Hope there's a dryer, yeah.
When the girls find that Nina's gone, they decide to cover for her. They realize that Nina will probably be happier with Tommy, as they are all miserable living with Nick. So that same morning, Nick and Carlotta go to this boarding school, which I'm assuming is somewhere in California because they couldn't have gone too far. And even though it's like a really good school, Nick is kind of disturbed by how strict it is.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Kind of like, girls are severely punished for chewing gum, trivial dress code violations, and listening to Little Richard. It was funny how the teacher said it. A man named Little Richard. As they leave the boarding school, Nick begins to realize that he often feels like a misfit in the upper class society, and because of his humble beginnings, he is often outcast by his other colleagues. His parents died when he was young, and Nick always had to fend for himself, but he always wished he had someone in his corner. Nick slowly starts to realize that he and the girls have more in common than he realized. Maybe the girls he adopted need someone in their corner and not someone who's going to ship them off for making a mistake. Clapper eventually discovers Nina is gone. Freddie informs Nick, and he rushes home. So he starts to kind of demand it out of the girls, and the girls are like, why should we help you? Why did you adopt us? Like, we don't understand why you even care. And then Mickey, the youngest, was actually kind of cute. She's like, if you hate us so much, then why'd you bring us here? Nick finally realizes, he's like, okay, fair point. I haven't been super friendly to y'all. He apologizes. But he reminds them that, like, Nina's just a kid. She could be hurt. She could be in trouble, and it would be kind of selfish for them not to tell. And so finally they admit where she is, who she's with the Roadhogs, which Marva very funnily says they're bad. And that they're staying the night in Big Sur, which I love all these California references that I now understand that I didn't understand when I was a kid. Nick eventually finds Nina in a seedy tavern with Tommy and the Roadhogs. He saves Nina from being forced to drink liquor and basically be a piece of property to the rest of the men in the biker gang. Nick and Tommy fight the other Roadhogs, and they, along with Nina, escape the bar. At first, Nina is furious with Nick, but after he brings her back to the house and they sit down and talk, he reminds Nina, dude, you're 15. Like, you're only 15. You're a kid. You have your whole life to be an adult. You do not need to be in a rush to grow up. And that's, the girls come downstairs. They're all really happy to see Nina. Patty kind of shows Nick the pamphlet that she threw into the pool. She was like, I get it now. Like, I'm starting to get it. So she's starting to take, like, her reading more seriously. And then right before they go to bed, Nina tells Nick, like, when you came in and said, Nina, put that drink down, I liked it, saying that she liked having a parental figure in her life. She kisses Nick goodnight, and you can kind of see on Nick's face that he feels like a dad for the first time, and he kind of likes it. So he wakes up the next morning, and he's, Nick is a completely different person. He's upbeat, dancing around his room, having a good time. Clapper reminds him that he has to, he's playing golf that day, But he's like, no, cancel my plan. Gather up all the girls. I have a surprise for them. So he brings them to, Nick brings the girls to the school on a Saturday, which they're like, why are we here? It's a Saturday. They go into the auditorium, which is pitch black. They sit in the front row. And who is on stage but their favorite singing group, The Delights. He surprised them with a little private concert. They sing One Fine Day, originally sung by the Chiffons. The girls eventually join them on stage and dance along. They convince Nick to join them, and he does. Also a very cute scene.
It was.
Carlotta begins to feel threatened. It was only a matter of time. Carlotta feels threatened by the girls for stealing Nick's attention. This escalates when she overhears Nick talking to Freddie about having second thoughts about sending the girls to boarding school. So Baldwin has now sealed the deal. He's convinced that Nick is the person that he thinks he is. So he's ecstatic. He wants to have a big party at Nick's house to celebrate the merger. Nick is ecstatic to show off the girls, and now that they feel more like a family, he doesn't seem to care about his image, but seems to care more on showing everyone how proud he is to be the adoptive father of these girls. So it's less that he wants people to think that he's a good guy, and he just wants to be with, he just feels like he's a family now. And the girls are also eager to impress Nick and everyone at the party. And as they get ready for the party, they sing to the tune of Please, Mr. Postman, originally performed by the Marvelettes, but the song is changed to Mr. Foley. You know, it was pretty easy. That was a pretty easy song to change out. The lyrics were changed to describe the girls being very excited to be shown off because they want to make Mr. Foley proud. When the girls are going downstairs to attend the party, they're stopped by Carlotta, who basically is just like, you girls look really nice. By the way, what are your sizes? Because we're shipping you off. We need your uniform sizes. You're being shipped off to boarding school on Monday. So the girls, of course, are really upset because this is, they finally, like, Carlotta's kind of like, well, you didn't think you were actually staying here. This was all basically, Carlotta just blows everything up and tells them that this was all a publicity stunt. The girls get upset, obviously, so they decide we're not going to get mad. We're going to get even. They decide to kind of dress up in these. That was also kind of funny seeing like their like bad girl clothes.
Right.
So they changed. They were dressed very like prim and proper. Now they're like dressed like biker gang girls, and they start singing Jailhouse Rock in front of the party, intentionally throwing the party, which the whole thing kind of escalates into this madness, chaotic madness where people are tripping over this, someone falls over that kind of whole situation. So Nick goes up to the girls and is like, what are y'all doing? What's the problem? And they're just like, you don't want us to be here. You want to send us away. So you don't have to do that. We're just going to leave. We're going to go back to the orphanage. And Nick is so upset by all the actions that goes on. He's just kind of like, fine, leave, whatever. And then he confronts Carlotta and is like, hey, did you tell them about this? And she was like, yeah, I told them. They needed to know the truth. And he just flat out is like, oh, we're done. Like, glad you had no right to do that. You need to get out of here. I'm sure you'll find another man to leech off of. So the girls return to the orphanage where they are the only ones remaining. Miss Provo tells them not to get too comfortable, implying they're on their way to Juvie Hall. I just love saying Juvie Hall. I just love saying Juvie Hall. The girls sing a reprise to Dreammaker while Nick is back at home, walking through their rooms, begin to sing his own version of Dreammaker. The girls finally come to terms with the fact that dreams like theirs just don't come true. Nick arrives at the orphanage to take the girls back. They are hesitant, but Nick shows that he really cares about them, and they all forgive each other. The girls sing their final reprise to Dreammaker as they get in the car with Nick and start their new lives together as one big happy family. End of movie, because that's what it is to me.
Yes.
So that not nearly as long as I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be honest. I was like, oh, I'm going to be sitting here for so long telling this. I did my best to summarize it. I feel like I did okay. I need you to tell me I did okay.
You did okay. No, I was going to say that was good.
I love you, Dad. I need to hear you say it.
Say it back. Say it back.
All right. So we talked a lot.
I don't know if I would even if I knew it was like going to be a TV show. I don't think I would have watched it. No. I mean, I look at the time frame. I was like a senior in high school when this came out, so I don't think I even remember this coming out because it was like a couple months before I graduated. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't even remember it ever coming on.
Yeah, I mean, it's cute. Like I said, it's on YouTube. Just type in Rags to Riches TV show and it'll all pop up. It's cute. I mean, like if you feel nostalgic and you want to watch something kind of old school, I would say, just because I've never watched it, I would just say watch the pilot movie. It's its own thing.
Oh, yeah, you could watch that.
It's its own thing. And honestly, like, I just can't imagine the show being better than this. I mean, like, I'm no offense to the show. I mean, like, and I'm not saying that this is like top tier, the greatest thing I've ever watched, but I think because it has it's so close to my heart, I can't imagine the show being better than the movie. But honestly, like, it was probably like, 30-minute episodes or something like that. I just can't imagine a musical really encapsulating all of that in one episode. But yeah, if you want to watch it, it's on YouTube, like I said, and it's really good. The pilot's really good. I can't speak for the rest of the show because, like I said, I've never watched it. All right. I think that about wraps up this one.
Yep.
I think this might be one of the episodes where I talk the most. All right. That wraps up this episode of We Judge a Show by its pilot. Thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or you can leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
I have a bunch of random ones.
Okay.
So I have, of course, any of the music emojis, cash, any of the girls, the TV, any of the fancy cars. There's like the chain. There's like links for chain gang, dishes, the soap, the water, and then ice, and then any of the food emojis to represent the frozen food. I don't think there's like a mansion emoji, but like the house.
Yeah.
The heat and the sun.
Oh, heat wave.
Heat wave, yeah. The motorcycle, the kiss, rain, golfing, book, or any of the school emojis. And then the party emoji.
Oh, there isn't a hog emoji.
Oh, there is a hog. Yeah,
there is.
There's like a pig.
Okay,
yeah, there's
pig's
a pig.
good enough.
Yeah.
All right,
good one. Good one. All right. Well, we are gonna head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.